Hello Internet, I'm Mo, and it's Wednesday again, so I'm back for another Top 5 Wednesday. As you've seen from the title, this is my top 5 retellings, and I know I'm a week late, but technology, I'm still having camera, computer issues, and stuff, so that's why. But I was really excited to see that this topic was happening in December because, as many of you probably know, I love fairy tales and myths and legends, and I also really like retellings, so I'm really excited to get to talk about some of them. I'm not necessarily going to do my top 5 retellings today. I'm going to do 5 that I really like, that I haven't seen talked about on BookTube very much, if at all. And so hopefully I will be able to introduce you to some books that you have not heard of today. The first book I would like to talk about is Breadcrumbs. This is a middle grade novel, which is a retelling of Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. And for any of you who have not read that fairy tale, The Snow Queen is nothing like the movie Frozen. The only thing that they have in common is that there's a rescue, and snow, and a queen. That's it. The stories are completely different. And so this is about a young girl whose best friend and next door neighbor disappears, and all of the adults assure her that it's fine, everything's okay, but she doesn't believe them and she goes off to rescue him. And it's a portal fantasy, so she goes from the real world and sort of falls into fairyland. And it's also interesting in the way that fairyland is portrayed, being that it's a middle grade book, because usually you get this sort of fairyland is this magical, wonderful place that we wish we could live instead of the real world, but fairyland is really portrayed quite dark in this book, and it has that sort of magical, surfacey thing until she gets into it farther and realizes how really creepy and scary it is. So I just found this to be a really interesting read of a fairy tale that's not retold all that often. So yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, go pick it up. The next one I want to talk about is A Long, Long Sleep by Anna Sheehan. This is a YA space opera retelling of Sleeping Beauty. So it came out 5 or 6 years ago, I think, and I haven't really heard many people talk about it. It's not heavy on the science end of it, but it's this futuristic retelling, and it starts at the point when Sleeping Beauty wakes up. So instead of telling the story and then ending at that point, like the original fairy tale does, it starts there and then shows her having to deal with the grief of having lost everyone and everything that she ever knew because she's been asleep for like 100 years. And it's YA, so she's like 16. She's also learning to reintegrate into society and dealing with meeting new people and are they her friends or not. And she is sort of a princess in a sense. Her parents were very wealthy and owned this huge like corporate empire, which she is now heir to, so she's got not exactly political but some politics to deal with as well. And there's adventure, and it's really a lot about morality, and she's trying to discover what exactly happened to her and why she was left sleeping for 100 years, etc. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you liked like the Lunar Chronicles, for instance, you might enjoy this one as well because it does some similar things. The next one I want to talk about is Snow White and Rose Red by Patricia C. Reed. This is another fairy tale that's not retold very often, and it's about two sisters living with their mother, who's a widow, at the edge of a forest, and this bear comes to their house, and they discover that it's not actually a bear, it's an enchanted person who's been turned into a bear, and they decide to try to help unenchant him. And so this is set in Victorian times, I believe, or a little bit earlier. One of the things that's interesting is you see a lot of those types of books set in like London or in the city. This is set out in the country, and it uses very period language, so that's quite correct rather than using more modern language, I guess. And it also has a bit of a portal thing going on, I guess. They live near the edge of this forest, which is where you can get into the world of fairy, and so there's dealings with that. And it's also at the time when the witch hunts were going on, in England, so they're dealing with an enchanted bear at the same time as trying to avoid being suspected as witches and getting burned at the stake. And so there's that sort of political stuff going on. There are like investigators going around looking for witches throughout the story as they're trying to deal with these other enchantments going on. And I really enjoy it, and if you like historical fantasy, I think this one might be for you. The next one I have to recommend is actually a classic, but also a retelling of a fairy tale, in a sense at least, and that is Undine. And I don't remember how to say the author's name right now. It was originally written in French, I believe, and then translated. But this is a novella, and it's a retelling of the Little Mermaid fairy tale. She's not actually a mermaid, but she does come from the sea in this story, and it is not a happy ending, I will warn you. This is a tragedy, like the original Little Mermaid was, and it's set in medieval times and involves not a prince, but a knight, and some fishermen who live by this lake, and yeah, it's really good, you guys. I just love this one. It's great, and I don't think a lot of people read it anymore, so if you're looking for a shorter one, I would definitely go for this. The last one that I have to recommend for you today is Till We Have Faces, and this is by C.S. Lewis, and it's a retelling of the Greek myth of Cupid and Psyche, which has some similarities to like Beauty and the Beast a little bit, and this, if you've read C.S. Lewis's other books, is very different. I think I've heard it said that this was actually his favorite of the books that he had written, and it is not like the Chronicles of Narnia or his Space Trilogy, which are written for a younger, well, the Chronicles of Narnia for a younger audience. It's a much more literary in style, and yeah, it's set in ancient Greece, and with this small family that is, well, it's not like Greece is a whole country, so they're ruling a small kingdom, I guess, at that point. And so you're dealing with political stuff and the idea of, oh, what are the gods having to do with this particular thing? And it's told from the point of view of the sister of the main character, Psyche. So you're kind of seeing it from outside of where the original fairy tale or myth takes it from, which is also quite interesting. Yeah, so these are the 5 retellings that I had to share with you guys today. Hopefully you found some of them interesting. And, oh, once again, I forgot to say at the beginning of the video, Top 5 Wednesday is created by Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey, whose channel and Goodreads group are down below. If you have any fairy tale or mythological retellings that you really like, that you would like to recommend to me, I would love to hear about them. Leave me a comment. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Happy reading!